Are ghosts real? Several recent encounters suggest there might be more things in heaven and earth than we can dream of.
So are werewolves just a Hollywood creation, or do half-man, half-wolf creatures really exist? Now, tonight, we kick off our Conspiracy Theory Month series, which was
The legend of the vampire actually goes back for centuries, and it exists in some form or another in almost every culture. In fact, some people believe the first vampire story was in the Bible.
Well, for decades, only crackpots and crazy people believed in UFOs. That's what I thought anyway. And then in recent years, it turns out that governments have been taking them seriously all along.
Try and clear up an ancient mystery with the help of a prominent veterinarian who says she can prove that Bigfoot exists and that he's related to all of us.
New reports, 5 pilots coming forward over the weekend saying they've had multiple mid-air encounters with high-flying, fast-moving objects.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to Season 4, Episode 7 of the hit underground paranormal radio show known as Celestial Oddities Pong, PairOfNormal Guys podcast. As always, I am your host, Frater Crow.
And I'm your co-host, Daniel James.
We want to thank you for tuning in this evening. Whether listening live or you're streaming this after the fact, please make sure to click the like, share, follow, and subscribe button on whatever platform you're tuning in from. Whether you're watching us on Facebook, watching us on YouTube, or right now you're watching us live on Instagram, which only gives the live feature, you can always follow our pages and make sure you're tuned in for upcoming episodes. We do really appreciate it. If you've never tuned in with us before, we cover everything there is on paranormal and supernatural, from different phenomena and happenings that have happened to having great guests on and interviewing them that are professionals within the field, doing call-in episodes, where we talk to listeners just like you guys and gals out there and hear your wonderful experiences with the supernatural and everything in between. So if you love that type of information, love that type of content, and you haven't checked us out, please share us around. And if you're returning back to us, well, then, of course, we really appreciate you returning. We'd love to have you here. You can leave us comments on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, and we will see that right in front of us. We'll throw those up on the screen. If you have questions for us or our guest this evening, we would be happy to, go ahead and go over that or ask our guest the questions that you have. This evening is an interview episode, which we're always excited to do and interview great guests. This evening we have Justin Skjonsberg, and he also goes by Azariel Flame. He is a ritual practitioner and sorcerer for hire, a writer, a ritual toolmaker, and much, much more. Very interesting guy. Him and I have known about each other for several years now, and we're happy to bring him on the show, talk to him about, paranormal phenomena that he's experienced in life and in ritual, talk about cryptids, talk about aliens, talk about everything you guys love with this show. So we are very excited to bring him on. Dan, it's great to be back.
Right on, man. Let's do it.
Let's get it. So without further ado, folks, I present to you Azariel Flame. Good evening, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you guys today?
We are wonderful. Glad we were able to get you onto the show, and look forward to talking to you and picking your brain on some things.
Absolutely. Happy to be on. Been watching for quite a while. Was really excited to get in, so thanks for having me.
Oh,
cool. Welcome.
It's great because we only have a handful of episodes left, so to get you fit in before we kind of close up shop was a great thing. So I'm very excited to have you here, and I know the fans are as well. Like I said, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section, and we'll go ahead and get started. So Azariel, why don't you tell us where your path kind of began? Not necessarily in the occult or anything like that, but just in general with paranormal, with metaphysics, kind of the whole shebang. Where did your journey start as far as being interested in the abnormal?
I'm either very fortunate and blessed or completely cursed with my beginnings, because basically I've had normal phenomena happening, and it's been, just kind of a normal part of my life that I didn't really realize that most other people didn't understand or have any interaction with. For example, when I was a little kid, my ghost was like very, very present. The point where, we had a ghost named George, and expect that if you sat down at the dinner table, so you'd be sitting in the dining room, and then there was was a door that went upstairs, and you'd always hear kind of this thumping coming down the stairs every time somebody would get ready for breakfast, and then the door would swing open and absolutely nothing would come out, and then you would hear walking to the table, and then you would hear somebody sat down. And pretty normal occurrence, like every Sunday on this house, right? And this was when I was really young, from the time I was 2 years up, things like happening around me. And so that was like interesting to me that, as I'm older now, people didn't have these types of experiences. And so that's kind of really what set me off, that, I was physically witnessing things move in a paranormal way that other people just didn't get the chance to leave. Grandma's house, and you'd set down your gloves, and guaranteed every single time the left glove would go missing. They were never found. There was never any explanation for it. Like it was ants or the dogs or anything like that. And when I would stay there, myself and my cousins were very that world, so to speak. I think that we found out later that there's definitely a portal there, and it was a very potent portal because the spirits that were there would actually, when we were sleeping, which was super, super creepy. If you were, they would sleep around the house of things, and people would go, like, Justin, what are you doing? And you'd go, I'm trying to find my guys. And what do you mean? Well, this is just over the hill, and we're trying to run away from the garrison, and soldiers coming in and possessing the kids, and we were talking about wartime things, and then we have no recollection. And so we all just kind of, everybody had this weird connection to the spirits of the land there. As I got older, the phenomenon got more and more intense. And so my exorcist come out and try and the place and everything else, and nothing ever worked. They could actually close the portal down. I was older, and a friend of mine that I was doing work with at the Rock and Gem studio came over for a visit, and when he went home, his mom took a picture of him, and his face was completely his face, and it was the face of whatever this soldier was that had been trapped in the house for all these years, and you could literally see his eye on him and everything else in this photo, and it was so cool. And from that moment, paranormal experience ever that happened in that house. So this was kind of the things that to me to know that there's something on the other side. There just absolutely has to be. Like, there's no way that dozens of people are seeing the same things happen, that every kid that sleeps in this sleepwalks and pretends they're a soldier, or pretends that they're native and that they're digging for some kind of boulders. It was super cool to get to grow up in that environment, because I got to see things that, even I talk to a lot of paranormal investigators nowadays with my work, and a lot of them don't see full-blown manifestation or full-blown of a person or things like that in their work. Generally when we get called out to these things, feel a negative energy, you feel fear, you feel a heaviness on the place, things like that. But very often do you get, or not very often I should say, do you get full-blown manifestation, full-blown possession, actually physically seeing things moving with your eyes, stuff like that. So, it was really cool to get to grow up in that environment. It's had a very, very old base, and when they were first digging it, they heard a horse downstairs, and they went to go and investigate, and they heard this horse whinnying and running in a basement, and they went down there. There's nothing there. And things like this just growing up. I had these experiences not just there, but in other places as well, where I would, see manifests kind of appearing in front of me and stuff like that. So I don't know if it was just because of the environment that I grew up in, or if I was born with, potentially better abilities than I even have now, because I definitely don't see full-blown manifestations often. But when I was a kid, man, they were pretty part and parcel to my daily life. And so that was just kind of how I grew up. So that really kickstarted my journey into all of it. I went to church first to try and find answers, And of course, you're just told that it's either demons there or it's your imagination, and you don't find any help there. And then I started investigating, all sorts of different religious lines, started getting into, esoterica, mysticism, the occult, things like that, just to try and explain the phenomenon and the things that I grew up with. So I kind of started, at the point where we try to get to as practitioners, where you're getting full-blown manifestation of conjurations and things like that. And I had to, work in reverse to try and figure out what the tech was behind causing this to happen. So I kind of have an interesting reverse entry into all of this. Whereas, a lot of people start this hoping to have those experiences, and it takes years for it to happen. So that's kind of something that has been an interesting part of my journey that isn't common from.
Well, it's interesting because I relate heavily to that myself. My story is very, very similar, that I grew up in a house that was very heavily active. And I think it's a mixture of a few things. I think children certainly have a heightened sense of the astral and ethereal realms. I think that they connect a little bit more easily as you get older. More dirt gets thrown on that satellite dish and hazies up the picture. But, I was seeing full body apparitions as a child. I was having massive activity happening in this home, and it was the home that people all around my neighborhood knew of. That's the haunted home. People experienced things there. Friends came over, wouldn't come back again. So very similar to you, it led me into the occult, into ritual, into figuring out the tech behind it, because it was part and parcel to see daily, weekly, these things happening, moving, objects moving in my home, seeing someone run down the hall, seeing a man peek around the corner. And it's very interesting to know that, it led me the exact same way. Is how does this work? I'm seeing it, I'm experiencing it. Well, now I want to find out, how can I tap into it as I get older and my senses were dulling on their own? How do I keep them sharp? How do I keep my mind tuned in? And how do I also understand them, communicate with them, and maybe do the research to be able to open those doors, to let them through and communicate, and then close those doors, have access to the gate. So I certainly relate to that. And it's something you said, it's very interesting, and I've thought of this before, and it's not something Dan and I have talked about on the show. We've talked about similar, but not this exactly, would be the phenomena of haunted locations in the correlation and connection with sleepwalking. We talked about sleep paralysis. We've talked about shadow beings visiting during sleep paralysis several times. But is there a correlation behind haunted locations and children sleepwalking? Because I, too, as a kid, sleptwalked all the time and would talk in my sleep while sleepwalking. After leaving that home, and even as I got a little older in that home, I never sleptwalk again. But for several years of my life, it was common that in the middle of the night, my parents would hear booming around, and they'd walk out, and I'd just be in the hallway staring at the wall, and then walk into the wall over and over again, and then be walking around looking for something, but no one knew what I was looking for. Neither did I, because I don't remember it. So it is kind of interesting, folks. If anybody's listening out there, you grew up in a haunted home, and you have stories where you have been sleepwalking, please leave a comment and let us know, because I would love to see, is there a correlation? Is this a multiple happening? Because I believe there is some type of connection. Dan, what are your thoughts?
I do as well. I feel the same way. I mean, just like to parallel your guys' stories, I grew up in similar situations, seeing the Hat Man and shadow people and having sleep paralysis and seeing all sorts of astral entities in my house. And I think that's almost in a sense like a catalyst for us, like a consciousness trigger to get us moving in the direction of discovering our divination tools and our spiritual abilities and our spirit science and our spirit tech. I think it's almost in a sense a common path for many of us.
Something I've thought about, and it's kind of out of the box, but what if we, gentlemen, let's say the three of us here, are the conduits bringing this activity happening for our family, and other people experience it as well? Now, someone could say, well, it happened before I was born. Well, then, obviously we're not the only one. But what I notice is that, there was happenings that happened before I was born in my home. But I always seem to be a very big part of it. When I was around, there was always a lot of activity that's happened around me. I do paranormal investigations all over this side of the country in some of the most famous and some unknown locations. And I'll go out with crews who might have been there the night before, had a little bit of experience, and then I show up and all of a sudden stuff goes crazy. And it's not a pat myself on the back like I'm special, but what I noticed is that when I'm at places, it seems like the activity's heightened. Now, obviously, I'm working in ritual quite often, so that can heighten that aura that comes from me. But ever since even a child, I've noticed where I go, the activity follows. There was an incident just recently. I went somewhere, and someone seen a spirit run by behind me, and they're like, "Holy shit, did you see that?" And I says, "No, but I don't need to. They're with me." And I didn't even have to look. I knew that there was a spirit there. They follow me around. Where I go, they go. So, I mean, do we think that, that might be a part of it, that, we are almost the doorway in itself? Azariel, what do you think about that?
I definitely do think that you're onto something, because, for a couple instances, one, I do daily magical work. This is my life, is, who I am. And whenever doing very, very heavy work that is pushing my envelope, usually is when it happens, I can almost guarantee that night my kids are going to sleepwalk. The one is a teenager now. She's a little bit older. It has to be like a really heavy working for it to affect her. But my youngest, man, if I do something that is, really, really pushing my bounds, maybe I'm doing some very deep underworld work or something, I can almost guarantee that night she is going to sleepwalk, and she's going to tell me a message from the other side. So you're definitely onto something with, we're definitely pulling the things through, and we can cause this around us. And then the other thing too is when I go and get called to do an exorcism on a home, or I get called to help with a paranormal investigation, lots of times, just like you said, the previous team that was there, they didn't get a lot. They, maybe picked up a little bit with their tools. They might have had some EMF. They might have had, a little bit of interference, things like that. It's going on and off. But they very rarely mention things like that. And then usually when I get called out, they're like, we don't know what the hell to do here because we can't pinpoint it. We can't find it. We don't know what it is. And then as soon as I amp up my energy body, which is one of the first things I usually do on a call, is I really light myself up on the astral plane. Like, I absolutely want those there to see me.
Yes.
As soon as I do that, we start having phenomenon almost immediately. Like, almost immediately. I would definitely agree with you that we are the conduit. And, when we were younger, we had no idea what the fuck we were doing, right? So the odds are that we were just wide open channels. We were probably, a radio station constantly set to scan and picking up everything. Whereas now we can kind of tune that radio station frequency in, and we can find which frequency is going to make that happen. And that, that comes with all of our years of experience and things like that. But I definitely agree with you that we can absolutely increase phenomenon around us just by tuning in properly.
Well, I think it kind of is a double-edged sword. So as we get older, we take that wide open broadcast channel that we're picking up everything, like you said, and we start to filter it down, which is a good thing, so we're not bombarded by stuff all the time. But the problem is we don't even realize naturally we're doing it, and then as we close it, a lot of times most people never open it up again or don't know how to open it up again. So like I said, as you said, lighting yourself up, clearing your energy systems, getting the chakras moving, getting that energy flowing, opening that channel, lighting yourself back up and allowing them to see you. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make in the paranormal is they make the mistake of believing because you might see, or hear or have some type of phenomena of the paranormal or of the ghosts, that they see us clear as day. They're like, we're right here. Give us a sign. Just because you heard a little bit of scratching and this and that from them, they might on the other end be the same for you. They hear little blips and little cuts and pieces, and they're looking around on their plane and not able to figure out where is that coming from or even know that we're there. So unless you're doing something to radically break through that veil and show them that you're here and want to communicate, they're not going to know. I mean, I watch people, I've went on numerous teams chasing their dicks around the whole time. They're like doing all these things and nothing's happening. I'm like, because you think that they're just hanging out in the living room at all times. Yes, in their plane, they are on the same, they're in the same, how do I say this? They're in the same field as us, but there is a veil between us. They might not know that you're in the living room right now just because they are. And I think that's a big thing that people don't understand, is unless you make yourself known, it's the same as us not seeing them. They don't see us. We have a couple comments coming in here. Let me throw this one up on the screen. I grew up in a haunted home. I had sleep terrors and sleepwalked. I had most paranormal experiences out of everyone in my family in that home, although we all had some. It continued until we moved. It finally stopped when we moved. I never sleepwalked again. However, I've been gifted with ESP, and I often wonder if it was something I was born with or if it was something harbored through early experiences. I think that we are all born, Sarah, with gifts, because we are endless beings. You have to understand that we were alive before this avatar in this body, and we'll be alive long after it's gone. This is simply your construction vehicle. This is how you maneuver the landscape. So we are the material manifestation of a spiritual being. So as we come into it and we're first born, think of a baby. I want everyone out there, if you've never looked into a new baby's eyes, look into its eyes as it looks around with absolute wonder to the world, because it doesn't know what anything is. It sees the world absolutely open as it would be if we didn't have these filters that I just previously mentioned. And after time, everything it's told and shown, all the stimuli and experiences that child goes through, once again condenses that down and forms layers and bounds over that child and directs them into being what we know as a regular human being. But when they're first born, we all have ESP. We all have, abilities, because we come from a realm where we were endless beings with abilities beyond our wildest dreams. So they only become filtered because of the filters that we place on ourselves without even realize we're doing it. It would be interesting, and I've said about this experiment more before, if you took a child and they were born and you didn't talk to them for the first 2 years of their childhood, never a word, never showed them a TV, never showed them radio. It was silence for 2 years, but you fed them, you made sure they were taken care of. What kind of abilities that child would have by the time it's old enough to normally be talking, and you start to communicate with it, how it would still be open and able to do things that a normal child couldn't, because by 2 years in, they've already been conditioned so heavily that there'd be a massive difference. I always, not that I want to do that to a child, but it'd be interesting to see the comparison side by side. So Dan, what are your thoughts? Any questions you have?
Not so much of a question yet, but I wanted to comment on this topic. Is I've always felt like, in a sense, guys like us, people like us in our field, we have a vibrational frequency, and this vibrational frequency almost puts off like a light tower effect for the astral realms and the 4D frequencies, that almost makes us attractive to entities in a sense. And I've been told since I was a teenager that people that I was with, spending time with, hanging out with, doing things with, had never had a paranormal encounter until they were around me, in a sense. And so when I became sort of aware of these types of concepts, I always looked at it as like, in a sense, we are light towers that are attracting these sort of consciousness, entities, currents, however you want to term it, into our sort of realm, into our sort of awareness. And the people around us are sort of having these experiences, in a sense, almost because, like I said, we're like light towers. So that was just one remark I wanted to add to our conversation about that.
Well, I think that is true. And I think what a lot of people misinterpret, and this is my own beliefs, I only speak for myself, guys listening out there, is that everything is in us, all of it. Like I said, this is literally just a collective projection on the material lens. So you have 7 billion people who are endless God beings projecting through their physical avatar what we know as the earth and what we know as the world. So all ghosts of the human dead come from the collective unconscious. All demons, daemons, daimons, celestials, Olympians, all these beings that are out there that someone can conjure, yes, can be physical on the physical plane. Yes, they can move things and affect things here, but they all come from within us. Not you as Azariel, not you as Dan, not you as Frater Crow, but you as an endless being. Once again, this is just your car. So when you are summoning a being or conjuring a spirit, you are either evoking and pulling up out of the collective or a subconscious level and projecting out, or you're pulling down from the superconscious into you a being you were able to project out if you want, but that's why you must go in. Looking outwards, one of the biggest things Christians have always had a problem with, if they look upwards and outwards, they never find anything, is because it's inwards. You go inwards. So when we're children, I think that's one of the biggest things, because without those filters, we're letting out everything out of Pandora's box. It's just jumping left and right, climbing out of there. As we filter it in, then we have to do the work to pull it out, more directed, so it's not anything and everything. It is hopefully what we are trying to pull out, in a ritual perspective. But I think that that's one of the big things people don't look at, is that it's all coming from within us. Everything we experience as physical reality is a divine collection of all of us on this lens, but it all exists on another plane before here. What happens on the astral field then happens here. That's why if you go into the astral and you affect certain things, it'll then change things here. That's how magic works, folks. Through ritual, you make effects on another plane that's higher in elevation than here, and then it'll happen here. Whether that's a day later, a week later, a year later, there's time frames involved. The more powerful you are, the more in tune you are with your workings and your magical abilities and divine will, the faster it'll happen. Some people do a ritual and it takes a year to manifest. Some people do a ritual and 2 days later, crank, there it is, boom. And it's all about your practice, your education, your knowledge, and your potency. Now, Dan, you mentioned, people being affected when you're around and having that happen. Another reason I think that is we influence those around us. As anything, like attracts like, and you can pull people up and they can pull you down. That's why if you hang around a bunch of people with low vibration, you're going to start to feel shitty. You're going to start to feel depressed. You're going to start feeling suicidal, all kinds of things. It's not just because that's, physically the people where you're around. No, their actual frequency is, tainting yours and pulling it down. But on the opposite of that, you can be so high in elevation that when people around you, they just feel great. They feel good. They're more motivated. They want to do things. They start to experience more of that divine plane because, once again, we are the conduit. We are the one influencing them, because higher will always trump lower. And that's the same thing. When you are higher in consciousness, you have access to more beings to work with. And then people can argue that. You can be, depressed and shitty all the time and think you're summoning angels all the time, but you're not going to get as much of a bridge and connection as you would as someone who, that's why they ancient practitioners would talk about ritual cleansing baths and doing confession beforehand, because all of these things that mentally, physically, and spiritually elevates your consciousness and frequencies not only allows you to tap into higher planes and higher beings, but it also gives you a stronger connection. It goes back to that metaphor I've always given. When you're doing ritual, do you want to drink the wine cooler or do you want to drink the moonshine? Some people drink the wine cooler and they're happy with that slight little buzz. Oh, cool, I talked to this being. I'm going for the moonshine. I want to be fucking rock. So I think that, that is a big part of how the inner to the outer works in the array of frequencies. Azariel, would you agree, or do you have some different type of input on that?
Actually, I will say that was one thing that really majorly changed my effectiveness of my magic. When I kind of adopted the idea, a lot of modern authors now are onto this idea. Josephine McCarthy really talks about it with Correa, and the big thing is inner plane, inner spirit, inner beings. These are, this is where the true astral happens. It's not going out there. When we're talking about Christianity and constantly reaching out for the divinity to come to them, no, it's already in you. It's already within you. All of your inner beings sides are already there. All of your inner powers are already there, and all of the inner planes, if you want about the tree of life or whatever, you can traverse it all from within. You don't need to go outwards. Working in have to be blown astral projection. It's really, really to do a full-blown astral projection and get out of your body and be sucked through the tunnel, and that's really awesome, but it's also very taxing on your brain. It's taxing on your body, and we don't need to do that to affect change. This is where things in meditation are paramount to your success, because you enter that stillness and that silence, you are able to access things through a much easier avenue than having to do all of this extra physical and mental exertion. So our imagination is just as potent on the astral plane as a full-blown projection is, once you have the practice and the ability behind that. And, that's where things really started to take off for me, was once I started going inward instead of outward, and, started to visualize paths and these pathways and these beings within myself. And then all of a sudden my invocations became, because they were there the whole time. You want to conjure the angel. Well, just that thought, very beginning of your idea of, I'm going to conjure this angel, that ritual has already been completed in the quantum and astral realms. To do now is fulfill the actual working for it and know that it's going to be a success. And ever since I've started doing that and looking at it from that perspective, it has begun to work that way. And there's some great works coming out now from Frater. And if you look at his spirits, he literally does just has you call out to the Olympic spirits and mute them into your entire body within yourself. And all of a sudden, the power of the Olympic spirit starts to come from in instead of out. It changes how your magic. All of a sudden, you're able to speak to your holy guardian angel in a way that you never could before. You're able to have visions and affect change around you in a way you never could before. So I absolutely agree with you on the go in thing and to activate these spirits within our bodies. Now, I don't go so far as saying that it's a mental model versus a physical model, because I do believe that, spirits are actual spirits, actually have their own thoughts and vibrations like that. I don't believe it's just a permutation of our minds when I say going within, but knowing that you are connected through the macrocosm and the microcosm to every single being that has ever existed is a massive change and step forward into the way that you will connect to them. We were talking about radio station tuning and scanning frequencies to tuning in. Well, now you can all feel those feelings within yourself. So now let's say we're going on a paranormal investigation. People are saying that there's spiritual activity there. I can almost guarantee that either of you have been on a working, have walked into a home that is haunted, and you get a feeling somewhere in your body when you are on to where that spirit is. That is your connection to that spirit, in opinion, in the inner planes. And so once you're able to access that and you're able to open that up from within, the paranormal phenomenon that you're going to have is going to far exceed what you would have if you weren't able to connect to that.
Agreed. And the more that you can notice it on the physical, the more you know when and where to tap into it. And the sharper you make those faculties and those abilities, like I said, then you can do that. Where other people might be just walking around with devices trying to get something to connect. They miss the fact that, well, they're in the room that they were told is the most haunted room. It's the closet upstairs that you can feel that energy. And you sit in front of it, you connect into it, and boom, there you are. The activity's happening. They're downstairs missing it all. So I think that that's very important. Now, one thing I will clarify as a correction with what I said is they are all internal, as per my beliefs, but not internal meaning internal of Frater Crow, because once again, this is just a character. So as you go in and tap into that greater consciousness, they are external on the external plane, but when you go in and tap in, you're tapping into every human that's ever existed, every God form, thought form, and being that's ever existed with its own intelligence, but they come out of us. So we are the one projecting, as my belief, out of us into this world and bringing them here, but they do physically exist aside from us. But then again, at the same time, it's a paradox because they are all us, just as you two are me and I'm both of you. Not to get too trippy there, but that's kind of how I meant it earlier. But the way I said it could be taken a little bit differently. But no, you're right, Azariel. I mean, within the Bible, I mean, how often, how many times did it have to be said, at least in the New Testament, by Jesus and the followers of Jesus, that we are the divine beings? It's within us. Look within yourself and you will find, the kingdom of glory. Thou who looks inside themselves will find me there. Though my eye be single, my body is filled with light. Over and over again, he kept trying to tell you that, like, you don't have to look upwards and you don't have to believe in God. You can look within and tap into the spiritual world, to divinity, to angels. They're there. They're in you, man. He kept telling us over and over and over again, and they were able to spin it into the story, flip-flop it, and make it into a dogmatic religion of belief and of submissiveness, of bowing down. But even still, with them flip-flopping and adding shit to it and diluting it, it's still all right there telling you, look inside yourself. You are God. You are the one. We have divine faculties. Sharpen them. Use them. You know what I mean? And honestly, if you dig deep enough, the whole story of Jesus is really just a way of telling you to open up your pineal gland and the endocrine system to raise your kundalini to, you know, tap into that astral world. So it is interesting that it's all around us, but most people will skip that. I mean, it's much easier to not be great, if that makes sense. To be great is hard. It's a lot of work. I left a comment on a friend's thing earlier where resistance is everything. Most people think go with the flow. Let the stream take you where it wants to. Well, the stream's going to take you over a fucking waterfall and kill you. That's what going with the flow does. Pushing against the current is hard, but it'll strengthen you. It'll build character. And as you push upriver, that's when you find the land of milk and honey. Resistance is needed. So we can live our lives so comfortably and easily. Comfort is the trap. That's hell, folks. So break free of that comfort zone. Push yourself, as Azariel was saying. Get in tune with those faculties. Light yourself up and find out when you're feeling that. When you walk into the room and you get that feeling like, oh, shit, there's something here. Don't ignore that. You know that right then and there something is communicating with you and saying, I'm here, let's talk. Open yourself up, light yourself up, and tap in. See, we get some comments coming in here. But how do you know? But how do you do that being new in this spirituality? I'm not sure which part, Ryan, you're speaking of, but I mean, it's just a matter of experience and practice. I mean, the thing that most people make a mistake, and I want you guys to jump in, I don't want to talk too much, but the thing that most people make a mistake of is day one wanting to be, you know, the magus, to be the master of your craft. And folks, that's when mistakes are made. You build from the ground up. I've used this analogy before. The Golden Dawn was great in the fact that they gave neophytes a year or more of doing the lesser banishing ritual and the lesser invoking ritual of the pentagram, morning, noon, and night, every single day for a year. And they didn't let you do anything else. Nowadays, what is fronting as the Golden Dawn, you know, David Griffith and all that, which is not, they try to teach the same thing. The thought's still there. And people nowadays, we're in a world of on demand. I want it, and it's like J.G. Wentworth. I want it, and I want it now. Well, it doesn't work that way. You're working with spirituality. So people think that, like, I'm jumping in month 2. I need to be evoking demons, and they need to be in front of me. It's not going to work like that, folks. You need to work your way up properly, because there's something to be said about discipline. Discipline before desire. And you work your way through that discipline. So, Ryan, what I would say is take it slow, but stay steady. Every single day, as Azariel says, his life is ritual. His life is practicing. That's his livelihood. Mine, too. Every single day of my life, I'm performing ritual. And that's what it needs to be in some form or fashion. From reading and researching to stepping into the circle and speaking with spirits, to astral projection, to tarot and divination, to scrying and everything in between. You need to be a part of it. But take it slow. You're not going to be jumping in and doing the amazing things that you read about. I want you folks to know that a lot of the shit that you're seeing modern practitioners write about, they haven't actually experienced. It's mental masturbation. They're putting fantasy stories out there and people are eating it up and wanting to be that. It's not saying that it can't happen. I'm just saying in most of these folks' cases, it's not happening. They are projecting something that they can only fantasize about. But if you take it slow, you build up properly, you build that discipline before desire, eventually the desire will be there and you can get it. So that is something very important on how to get there. Baby steps, brother. Baby steps, which will lead to leaps and bounds. Digiboy is so cool. I don't know what that means.
Boys of mine.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I don't know what that means, man. But how do you get more information on what is good starting point? Sorry to ask. No, Ryan, that's the perfect question. How do you get more information? You fuck up a bunch. You just need to start. Pick where your interest is. And then you read a book, you practice what's in it, or you follow that meditation process, which leads you to another book, to another book, to another book, to another book. 5 years from now, you will look back and say, I am not at all where I envisioned being or where I started. And sometimes you'll loop back to it. I started out as a Satanist at 14 years old doing conjurations in graveyards. And then it led me to Hermeticism. Then it led me to everything in between, from Martinism to Kabbalism and Sufism to, everything imaginable. And then it led me back to the darkest practices there are, which is, the anti-cosmic Satanism and everything that's in that realm that I practice now. So it's going to be a wild ride, but there is no, like, where do I need to be? You need to be right where you are right now. Start out and just stay steady. That's the biggest thing you can do is, like I said, discipline. Every day, read. And that reading will lead you somewhere else. And even if it's not something you resonate with or like or will ever practice, read it, learn it, absorb it, because there might be a breadcrumb in that book that you hate that'll lead you to the path of paradise. And that's where you need to be. So just start, man. There's no right or wrong. Just dig in. Grab the shovel and start digging. It's an endless rabbit hole, man. Just keep digging. Any thoughts, gentlemen?
I actually will notate one thing, and this is for Ryan, and then I'm going to lead it into our guest. So the way I see, from my perspective, reality is that everything is actually astral. Everything is actually quantum probable energy. So we live in a 3D reality where our avatar is, where our consciousness, in a sense, is focused. But there's a higher astral, there's lower astral, there's other densities. And the way I see it is that even our physical reality, this now moment, is a version of the astral realm. And I dove deep into meditation and quantum meditation. And I love also what you said about imagination as well, because I believe it's one of the most powerful tools that we have. It doesn't require a lot of physical action, but rather a lot of discipline. I wanted to mention quantum meditation and the concept of, like, say, for example, I have my own void-like meditation that I call the Spirit Contact Protocol. And it's an exercise that I designed to help anybody who's new to meditation or even advanced in meditation to help go inward and help sort of, in a sense, focus all of your senses, your 3D senses, away from the body, away from the 3D realm, and into these astral realms that we talk about, the higher astral, the lower astral, the fifth density, whatever reality you want to go to in regards to spirit contact. But Ryan, it's really about the journey of discovering the self. So the one suggestion that I would have is really dive into and taking serious the concept of meditation and how powerful it is of a tool to help discover more of who you are, to help sort of, in a sense, bridge the gap to all of the different versions of reality that we have, whether it's astral realms or other densities or dimensions, however you want to term it. It's other just varying degrees of consciousness. But I would really try to find meditation techniques that you resonate with that can help you sort of go inward to where you're leaving the 3D senses and projecting your consciousness sort of away from the physical to help sort of getting in contact to your spirit teams, whatever those are. I know Frater can list a bunch of different titles for what they are, whether you're someone like me who works with extraterrestrial consciousness, or you're someone who wants to work with spirit guides, or whatever your definitions are. But learning meditation techniques that help project your consciousness away from the 3D reality into these other realms, these other astral frequencies, that's a good place to start that will help sort of unlock a lot of these other varying degrees within your consciousness that will help discover more tools that you have, more of your innate spirit abilities. And that's where, sort of, in a sense, things really started to crack open for me as a deliberate creator and using my imagination on how to sort of better navigate my own reality and discover more of what's out there and more of the self. So that was my one suggestion that I want to contribute. And then to take it over to our guest, I wonder if you by chance have any sort of divination tools that you like to work with, maybe 1, 2, or 3 divination tools that are part of your daily exercises that might be interesting or, in a sense, useful to some of the people who are in chat, maybe looking for some other areas that are more tangible, in a sense. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but people who are newer to these concepts, they do for having a physical action or having a physical tool that they can use to help sort of, in a sense, bridge that gap. Whereas, like, for me, for example, just one more little spin-off is that I actually don't really use any tools anymore. My meditation techniques, where I'm like literally like just sort of like leaving my body and traveling inward, is the point that I'm at right now in my journey. But to get to this point, I was using physical divination tools. I had a lot of things and exercises that I used to help me sort of connect to spirit. So my question for you that maybe will help chat is, do you have any physical, actionable divination tools or exercises that might be useful to someone like Ryan or anybody who's listening?
The first one that I recommend to every single beginner, no matter what, pendulum. You can make a pendulum out of anything. You can hang brass on a string. You can hang your wedding ring on a string. You can, grab some washers from the hardware store if you want. Or you can go to a new age shop and you can buy, beautiful pendulums with all sorts of stones and metals and whatever else. But that is a gateway into your unconscious. That's a gateway into the collective unconscious. A pendulum, and you're going to get wrong answers when you start. Just throwing it out there. This is something that, absolutely takes skill and practice, but over time, you will get to, probably an 80% hit rate on your pendulum. Start with that. And the other cool thing is a pendulum can be used for dowsing, which is fucking fantastic if you're looking for paranormal shit. Sorry, I didn't know if I could swear on this show.
Oh, swear away, brother.
How I speak. But you can douse with a pendulum, and you can find paranormal activity in the graveyard. You can use it to find paranormal activity in your home. They're very, very responsive once you know how to use them. You have videos on my YouTube of basics. Check them out, and that'll get you off places with that. I'm a big fan of the tarot to this day. There's just so many ways that you can program them and use them. But another really, really, really simple way is just yes, no answers. Get yourself a little pouch with, 3 black stones and 3 white stones on the pouch. Run it through some salt water. Just cleanse. If you have ways to do consecration, exorcisms and what on it, do that and empower it. Imagine that with the energy that you need from unconscious to give you and real answers, and hold on to it. Sincerely think about your question inward and state it outward. That's one thing that a lot of people don't do. It makes a big difference. Is ask your questions out loud. It will reverberate through the planes a lot louder, and you'll get a better response back. And you have the yes and the white be for no, or whichever way you are called to, and ask your question of the spirit or what to talk to, and reach in for your yes and no answers. And that's honestly a very effective way of getting simple answers. And other modern practices that I use, I do a lot of dream. Huge fan of dream walking. Being prophecy is kind of the way that I get a lot of my stuff. Again, if you go onto my website and check out my blog, I have an intro to dream walking on there, and it'll get you kind of off to the races there. So that's kind of what I would recommend for beginners. There's much more advanced techniques. I use Trithemius quite often and conjure spirits into crystals and actually get, full-blown physical mana in my mirror and things like that. But started, those 3 tools of that are, and the tarot is to everything in the cosmos. Learn how to read zodiacal information from it. You can read elemental information. You can information from the overworld, the underworld, whatever with it. It's a very, very powerful tool. I see that. There's a question here from the same person asking about what kind of books to start with, and that really depends on where you want to go. All of this stuff. If you want to get into witchcraft, Mastering Witchcraft by Paul Hewson, Psychic Witch by Matt, you'll be off to the races and following those protocols. If you're interested in ceremonial, check out Correa.com. They have a full beginner to addict program that's free online, and the first module deals with all the things that we're talking about, and that's lighting yourself up on the astral plane so the spirits can actually see you. Because that's something that a lot of people don't realize, is getting real good answers from these spirits requires that you're not going to get the answers that you should be getting. So, where I would start with divination, that's where I would, meditation techniques. And there's so much what you could do, but I think really that's kind of the basis of where everybody should come type of thing, especially if you're an absolute beginner. And then, learning protection work is always recommended. Learn how to take a cleansing bath so that next time you go to a graveyard and you take a straggler home, you can get rid of it, right? So
very much agree with that. I mean, that's one thing, folks, is it's fine to want to start out, as I said, to Ryan earlier, baby steps, and just dig in and start working. But it is also important that if you are going to do spirit work, if you're just learning, small baby steps at first and you're not actually contacting spirit, that's fine. But as Azariel said, protection of some sort is proper. Cleansing baths, fumigations and things to clear your home, clear your aura and yourself are very important, because I do a lot of graveyard work, and you will bring home things. I mean, it is 100% factual given that if you spend some time at night in the graveyard, especially doing ritual, and you come home, you don't realize it, but you're bringing stuff into your home, into your family's lives, that it can affect you and affect them. So it is proper to be able to get rid of those things, send them back where they need to go. But as Azariel also said, those are great tools to use for divination. One of my absolute favorites is tarot, obviously. And a lot of people, I think, that want to begin it, they get thrown off because having to learn all of the cards and all of the meanings, and there's so many different ways of looking at tarot. It's a universe that you're like, it's so big. It's okay. Baby steps. Even if you're looking at just the pictures and you're throwing down the pictures on the card and you're getting an interpretation of what the tarot reading spread is giving you from just pictures, that's an okay place to start. And from there, you can start adding in numerology, and you can start adding in Kabbalistic influences. You can start adding in elemental and all of the other correspondences that tarot connects to, because as Azariel said, it connects to everything. I mean, it literally connects to everything. You can use it for Sephirotic and Klipothic workings, and it connected to certain spheres, to certain kingdoms of spirits, and what that can mean. It is endless. So don't be intimidated by its endlessness. Just start and enjoy the journey. Step by step, you'll just go further and further in. It's a great way of going. Scrying is as well, but please learn protection magic if you're going to scry, especially working with spirits, because things will come through. I'm big on the scrying mirror. It's a part of every one of my rituals. Something I'll jump back to that was talked about earlier is that, yes, it is great to see spirits in full manifestation and evoke them to a physical appearance, but it's not needed. Let's get that straight. Everybody talks today like, he stepped into the room 15 feet tall as a werewolf. Like, that's great, but it's not needed, folks. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of preparation and time, and is very taxing on your mind, body, and spirit. You can have those effects without needing to do that. Now, I'm not saying there isn't a place to do that and reasons to do a full evocation. But what I'm saying is you don't need to do that every time. And honestly, if you're someone that tells me I evoke every single week or every day, you're full of shit, because the amount of taxation it does on your body, you're not doing it. It's just, that's fabrication, folks. And that's what a lot of these charlatans out there are doing these days. You don't need to do that. One of the big methods, and several other people have done it, so he's not the only one, but my good friend Balkad Moan has a method where he uses strictly the Hebraic letters of deities, and you read them, you meditate on them. You can add the tarot that connects and corresponds with it as well, like Giles de Laval. And you just meditate on the cards and on the Hebraic letters, their Gematrian equivalent, and meditate in that form or fashion, and you will tap into spirit that way. Not near as taxing. You go in vision. You will connect. Beings will show up. Maybe not your first time. It may take a few. But you will connect to spirit. And by the end of that ritual, and you give license to depart and be done, you're still good. But if you do a 3-hour evocation, by the end of that, you're like crawling up the stairs. You're like, holy shit, I'm not going to be able to even get up in the morning. Like, it is very, very taxing on you. So understand that there is a point and place for everything, but you don't always have to pull out all the fucking stops and have the fireworks show. Sometimes the smaller things are just as effective. And like I said, when you're meeting people that tell you they do all the bells and whistles every night or every week, there is a 99% chance that they're fucking full of shit. So, please be aware of that, but start slow. And as Azariel said, those are great tools to get started. The Josephine McCarthy course that you mentioned is a great, I believe that's what you were mentioning earlier, is a great course. I've only read over it slightly just to check it out, but she does have a course that is, I think, 4 books. It's dense and it's absolutely free. The fact that her, and I believe it was her and, was it her and Frater that did that together?
Yeah, Frater is one of the contributors for sure. Josephine mostly wrote it herself. And
Yeah,
it's a program, and it's entirely free online. That's why anyone that wants to get started in any kind of magic, send them there if they're, because it's applicable to every single path out there. You can decide you want to do witchcraft after you learn it. You can decide ceremonial magic. Whatever you want to do, she covers something in there.
Yeah, it's non-denominational form break, structure. This is the structure you can follow to learn magic, and from there, whether that's Christian mysticism and practice to satanic to Wiccan, whatever it might be, you can follow from her path. She's great. I think Josephine McCarthy's awesome. Talking about tarot, folks, if you want to get a very good perspective on tarot, Josephine McCarthy has some great books and some great works on tarot to learn, her method of doing so and divinating. I can't talk tonight with it. It would be great. Someone said about moon water earlier, and I would like to circle back real quick on that. Sympathetic magic. I'm not sure if that's the way you meant it. You just wanted to use moon water to scry or to, for connecting, but resonances of planets, of celestial bodies is very, very potent. And if you're getting into ceremonial magic, as was previously mentioned, you're going to need to learn that because there is a reason for all of that. A lot of people think, the certain colored candles with the certain incenses and the certain robes on certain days and certain times is just bullshit. You can have success without it, but I will tell you that if you perform a ritual on a specific day and time of the planetary hour, to a specific being of that resonance, you use the right color coordinated candles and the right incenses and the right herbs to dress that candle. There's reasons, and once again, it goes back to, do you want wine cooler or do you want moonshine? And once again, you can connect without having to do the ceremonial part, but it will strengthen your experience and your connection with them. But as Azariel said earlier, it's happening on the astral before it happens here. And one of the sayings I read a while back, what I really liked is that ritual is just the dress rehearsal for the divine will. You're already making it happen on the astral plane. You're then acting it out. You are then making a play that you are playing. You're doing a dance. Ceremonial magic is very much a magical ballet. That's why I love it. I'll give the Golden Dawn that. I've referred to them earlier, so I'm bringing them back in. The movements of every direction and every, everything that you're doing and moving, whether it's the Golden Dawn or whether it's the OTO and you're doing Thelema, doesn't matter. It is a ballet of movements and energy channeling and connecting in to act out what you are already putting into manifestation on the astral. And by doing that, you connect the astral to the physical and you bridge them together. And then that's when manifestation happens. That's when you bring things to fruition. So, that's how you practice it. Now, the comment that came in, and I don't know if I have a whole lot of input on it, Nocturne, thank you for your love and support. I appreciate that, brother, and the things you said. His question was, I have been studying, let me jump back. Did I lose it? I've been studying psychology for over 10 years. I've been wanting to get more into spirituality for the past couple of years. Psychology, while just as important as the metaphysical, only goes so far. Psychology is very important. I think one should study philosophy, psychology, theology, theosophy, cosmology, cosmogony. You need to study these things and bring them together because it brings the whole picture. You're kind of hitting it from every angle. But there was a comment, and it's gone. He might have deleted it. I don't know. It's like it vanished. He was asking, oh no, here it is. I just joined. I hope my question isn't off topic. How do you think left-hand path practitioners handle abuse from their childhood versus right-hand path practitioners? And I'll let Azariel answer that if you would like here in a second. But what I would just say is that both methods can have great results. Both methods can have failure. Everyone deals with trauma very, very differently. Left-hand path, the one thing I would give it is that if you're following the left-hand path properly, it's throwing you to the wolves. You have to deal with your shit. You're not praying to the sky and saying, solve me, fix me, help me. You are looking within, as we mentioned earlier. You're facing that dark shadow self. You're facing the trauma. You're going into the tunnels, and you are taking care of what needs to be taken care of. You're climbing the mountain on your own volition. You're with your own materials. Whether you have the ropes or not, you're making it to the top, or you're failing trying to make it to the top. You're not standing with a group of people climbing together as a unit. You are not a herd animal. You are not a sheep. You are a wolf. And you will deal with the world as a wolf. And by doing so, you can really break that down. Where unfortunately, a lot of times on the right-hand path, they devise ways of praying above, looking outwards and externally, and it doesn't allow you to look inside yourself. And I don't care how fucking much you work outwards. If you have true trauma, sexual trauma, and abuse, you're not solving it looking outwards. You must look in. I've talked about, through doing work on the left-hand path, recovered an incident that happened as a childhood that I suppressed, where a babysitter, which is a much, much older woman, molested me as a kid. Didn't even remember it happening until I got into ritual magic. And it was years into ritual magic. All of a sudden, I unlocked the shit that happened to me that I didn't even know did. And I was able to deal with it, break it, and I'm fine from it. You can let it break you, or you can break it. But looking outwards, you might, in cases like me, never even knew it happened, because you're looking outwards. It's in. When I dug in, keep digging and digging, I pulled up a pearl and I looked at it and said, what's this? And as I stared into it, I'm like, holy shit, there's some trauma. And I healed it. So that's how you got to do it, folks. That would be my answer. Left-hand path deals with it in a way that gives you more tools in the toolbox to handle it. Whereas the other one, they're kind of giving you a Barrett toolbox. You're needing a screwdriver and you got like a fucking rubber band. So that would be my take on it. Azariel, what do you think about that?
Well, I would totally agree with you on, the left-hand path is very individualistic with it. And that's always kind of been the way I look at this type of thing. Is right-hand path is almost always focused on the lodges or the groups or the group of people that you're going to work with to achieve something. Think churches, think, temples and synagogues. Right-hand path work is the full epitome. So while you do have the help because you have community, and you do have the help because you have people to pray for, the help because you have, people that are going to stand up for you if you need it, ultimately, you are not the one taking the reins from a right-hand path perspective. You're relying on other people to solve it for you, or while you're solving, and every time that you hit a little bump in the road, you're coming to people to fall back on who will help lift you back up. What ends up happening, my experience with this, is it takes much, much longer to actually make headway on these types of issues. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely am not, you shouldn't go see a therapist, that you shouldn't go to a church person, any of that. It's absolutely a helpful tool. But this is, like people myself, I'm a crooked path person that I use both very, very thoroughly. And you're going to walk through hell, but you're going to do it on your own terms. The way of thinking about it is, if you see a big hurricane coming and that hurricane is your trauma, you have the ability as a left-hand path practitioner to walk into that storm and eventually watch it stop. But you're going to have to weather the storm to stop it. Whereas with the right-hand path perspective, you're going to go with the group of people. You're going to run from the storm, and eventually you're probably going to outrun it and it'll go away. That's kind of the way I tend to describe it to people. Standing firmly in yourself and knowing that you're going to have to take your rock bottom in order to come up to the top, that sets the left-hand path vastly apart from the right-hand path in this perspective. And they're both great. There are absolutely benefits to both. Minded person, and you do the best with support and help and that kind of thing, right-hand path is probably going to be the most useful for you. If you're someone like me, where you would rather solve any problem on your own, no matter the consequence, you want to prove that you are the one who can do it and you're the one that can break through this, then left-hand path is probably for you. Now, that being said, for dealing with trauma, the single most effective tool I have found is called Feeding Your Demons. And it is based on the Tibetan practice of chud. And you literally push the demon of your trauma out of you, and you actually feed it and make it your ally. That is some of the most crazy left-hand path shit possible, I think about it. But it's coming from a right-hand path. So it's a nice in-between for somebody who isn't quite sure how to do this. You don't want to walk through and you want to face all of your inner demons. Well, this is a way to do it without the extra trauma and baggage that usually comes with that. So that is, I'll kind of meet you in the middle there and say that if you want to look at it from in the middle perspective, start with it and go from there.
As soon as you said feeding your demons, and you led into it beautifully, but as soon as you said, I have a practice of feeding my demons, it instantly made me think of chud and how, that is it. Go to a graveyard at night, open yourself up, and feast everything that you are to the spirits. Come and eat me. Take away my sorrow. Take away my happiness. Take away my pain. Devour me, and then start again anew. The slate is clean. An extreme practice, but a very effective one. So, and folks, if you want to practice chud and you need some human bone flutes, you let me know. I can take care of you. As most of you probably know, I have a wide selection of bones for sale. So you let me know. All legally sourced, by the way. Now we have someone that left a comment here. Matt Somerville said, from the standpoint of a normal paranormal investigator, what is your opinion of the best method for communicating regardless of religious belief or standpoint? Real quick, and we'll jump to Azariel, is that mind. I tell everybody, we are programmed in every possible way. I fucking hate programming. I can't stand it. I'm a big person that you must dissolve everything, all social norms, all laws, everything, and make your own code. Don't go by what society wants, because society's a fucking herd. Devour them. So, don't think of like how they teach you to paranormal investigate. What I mean by that is everyone is so focused at looking at the SLS camera and the EMF readers and their EVP, audio recorders, and they're looking at the flashing lights, and they got all the bells and whistles, and I got 20 grand in equipment. No one gives a shit, because that 20 grand of equipment isn't even 1/100th of what this right here will do if you learn to tap into it. That is the biggest thing you can do. Folks, if you haven't had an experience with a spirit and you want to, or you have and you just want to enhance that, you want to know how to have it, go out, and Daniel and I have talked about this extensively, go out into the woods, middle of the night, by yourself. Go somewhere, where you're not going to be, killed by someone. Go somewhere remote. If you have to take a gun, do it. I know people say, like, what about bears? I don't take anything. If a bear is going to eat me, then it's my time. But, go out there and sit 100% alone. Cell phone fucking off. Leave it in the car, put it in your bag, stick it away. Sit there. Ground yourself. Align yourself with the woods and talk to it. Hello, spirits of hello, great spirits of these woods. I am here to communicate with you, to connect, convene, commune, and converse. I come in honor. I come in respect. I mean you no disrespect. I ask that you mean me none in return. You do not have to communicate with me, but I would love it if you would. I will be sitting here for the next several hours regardless. Feel free to come out. Clear your mind. Don't look around the trees. Is it there? Is it there? What was that? What was it? Don't worry about it. Just go silent. Not just silent like this. Silent inside. Go to the inner peace. Break the monkey mind. That's why meditation is so important. You got to learn to get to there. It's a hard task. And just sit in absolute stillness and silence. Guarantee you, if you do that 3 or 4 times, you're going to have an experience that's absolutely mind-bending. I've gone into the woods many times. I mean, I do a lot of shit that's like this, but I go into the woods by myself, go quiet, allow that to happen, and you wouldn't believe the amount of spirits that come out in the woods in the darkness of night, or happenings with animals that just don't make sense. How about having a deer charge out of the woods at night, which doesn't even really make sense, right at you and stop dead in front of you and blow out, the steam and kick its feet a couple times, then back up and turn and run off. That's spiritual contact. When you said, let me know you're here, and that happens, that's saying we're here. There's amazing things to be discovered, but you can't discover it if you don't go out to discover it. all the time people say nothing's ever happened to me. I don't know if I believe. When the fuck have you tried? When have you really tried? A valiant effort. Not staring at your phone, not staring at an EMF reader, not jerking yourself off in the fucking corner with all your gadgets and telling everybody how cool you are. When have you gone out and actually put in the effort? Because if you do, you reap the rewards. Those that put in the work reap the rewards. So, Matt, I would say use your own brain, brother. That's all you need. Aside from that, tarot and divination, tarot and divination rods would be a great way of going about it as far as that. But I normally use a flashlight, an audio recorder, tarot, and my rods. That's it. I don't care. I have SLS cameras. I have all the bells and whistles. It sits in a box because if it needs to be used, cool. But it's useless. It's fucking utterly useless. Azariel, what do you think about that, man?
Well, I'll just add on to that too, because I have some of the cool shit as well, but I hardly ever use it anymore. Have you noticed that 90% of the time when you get true, authentic contact, your fucking shit shuts off anyway?
Yeah.
So, what's the use of it if it doesn't work? So that's the first thing, is that, stop relying on your tools, your EMF reader, FLIR cameras, and all of that shit. It's great, but like I said, 90% of the time that I've had true, real, meaningful supernatural contact, something goes fucky with my equipment. I don't get any recording of it anyway. So I'll agree with you on the going out into the woods thing. Probably one of the single most effective ways to learn this. You want to push yourself and you want to go absolutely beyond that. Now, anyone can do this. Not everybody respect that, absolutely. You can either take a float out with you for sensory deprivation out into the woods when you do it, or you can do it yourself alive. And doing that with a fire going out in the woods and assuming that you want to make contact will make you have some of the most insane connections that you will ever have in your life. Now, to bury yourself, you don't need to actually make it so you can't breathe, anything like that. Take a hole in the ground that's deep enough for you to lay in so that you are below the ground and you are absolute earth and you are absolutely grounded. You are completely surrounded by dirt and you are below the regular dirt around you. You've got a fire there to create an attraction for the spirits to come to. You have put out your will to make contact, and it might not happen like a couple times you do it, but eventually you have a contact, nothing experience, and it absolutely blow your mind. Now, another thing that is super cool that I just experimented with recently, and this has nothing to do with demons like that. We're actually going to switch to alien there for a second. Get into that forest and do this and look up what is called the CE5 protocol. This is a new set of protocols that has just been making UFO contact. And we just did this recently a few weeks ago. And for the first time ever, I had full-on contact with extraterrestrials. The aircraft actually came in front of us, and we were able to see. So absolutely check that out too if you're a paranormal investigator that isn't just looking at ghost type stuff. That is a super cool set of protocols to play with. And that's
Listen,
one way.
I do CE5. I'm a big fan of it. I have a lot of friends that do that.
I was just gonna say Dan's locked in on this side of things.
I'm an ET guy, and if you'll notice how my shit cut out the second we started talking about it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, you vanished there for a second. I'm like, where the hell did he go? And then all of a sudden,
that was not an accident.
Yeah, Dan's very big on the communication and channeling with alien and extraterrestrial consciousness. That's so like where you and me as Azariel work mainly with deities and spirits. This gentleman here, that's all he does. He's just contacting ETs. So it's very. He's been doing it aside from that CE5 method. He's been doing it for quite a while in other ways. But that just goes to show you folks, if you put yourself out there, they're going to come. People always wonder what the magic secret is. Like, I don't know. I just have never experienced anything. And just like I said earlier, when's the last time you went out to the woods and done that? Well, I've never done that. Well, no shit. That's why you never experienced anything. Well, I've never come across a demon. Well, most people haven't, man. But when's the last time you conjured one and took years to learn how to do it? Well, I mean, I'm not even into it. So, well, then, yeah. But how the hell would you learn the mechanics of magic to be able to conjure a spirit? You can't. So, yeah, on the off chance a ghost runs by or affects you in some sort of way, because they're everywhere, then, yeah, you'll have an experience. But most people always wonder, like, why haven't I had an experience? Well, because most people have had one, but most people aren't doing it deliberately. It's just random. That there are ways to deliberately go out and connect. I mean, I always find it enthralling because I love paranormal. But it doesn't surprise me. Like, I'm the type of person can watch an object slide across the table in a room when we're at an investigation, or a door swing open, then swing shut and close, and other people are shitting their pants, and I just sit there and don't even move. And they're like, did you see that? And I'm like, yeah. Why are you not freaking out? I'm like, because this is every day. Daniel and I talked to Daniel, folks. This is something you guys who follow the show. Daniel and I's last episode, right over here, this hand here, there's a TV, a big flat screen. As you can see, it's been off the whole time. I don't barely ever turn it on. I don't really watch TV. But after our last episode, I was down here for 2.5 hours. We turned off the episode. Behind this mushroom tapestry, behind there's a little bathroom. I went back there to take a piss. I'm standing taking a piss. It's like 11:30. And whatever time we ended the show, 10:30, 11, I don't know. I'm standing back there, and all of a sudden I hear, oh. Everyone in the house is sleeping, my wife and kids. I'm like, what the hell was that? It got louder and louder. Angel voices. Oh. I'm like, what is going on right now? My computer's off. Everything's off. I've been down here for hours in silence other than me and Dan talking. I walk back in. This TV is on, which is never on. I have Roku, so when you turn it on, it goes to the main menu. From Roku, you have to select an app, then select a movie. No, straight to a movie. It was Braveheart. I haven't watched Braveheart in years. Went right to it. I searched it. At the time, Braveheart wasn't even available unless you rented it. I checked the history. It wasn't on the history, so it's like it never happened, right? The other day, Christmas. Come down in my basement. Nothing's on. Go upstairs, come back down 15 minutes later. My TV's on. Playing the Spanish Hunger Games. My TV comes on all the time now. But Spanish Hunger Games on an app that was downloaded that day that we didn't download. I let it play the whole movie. I figured they wanted to watch the Spanish Hunger Games on Christmas. You know, why not? I live in a cemetery, so the spirits like to, do things. Turn off the TV afterwards. Came down later that night. The TV was back on. App selected again. Hunger Games again a second time. Yesterday, I turned on the TV for my kids. I watched the TV literally physically move on its own, select the Spanish channel again, once again, that they downloaded, and it selected the Spanish Gladiator movie. So whatever spirit's in my house right now, which there's many, is a Spanish spirit of some sort, and it loves Spanish Braveheart, Spanish Gladiator, and Spanish Hunger Games. This shit becomes second nature, folks. I mean, it's still wild and it's still enthralling. But the more you interact and light yourself up, as Azariel said, the more these spirits will come, the more they will interact with you. They are there. They're as real as the three of us are on the show. It's just most people don't see it. Now let's get into some comments, and then Azariel, I want to talk, and me and Daniel can jump back and forth on some questions for you, but I want to talk about your business and a little bit of what you do before we finish up for the night. But I want to see, I'd love to get out with you guys. Everyone on this feels welcome to get with my crew. Hello View Paranormal. We're very different from the norm. With you, Frater. That's what drives me, brother. Yeah, I don't go out too much with other teams. I used to quite a bit. My schedule is a little crazy, and I'm actually dissolving from the world. Doing everything I can to disappear. That's why if any of you seen, I'm not on Facebook anymore. The only posts going up are about this show. We're finishing out the last 6 episodes, and then me and Daniel eventually will return someday, but we're going to disappear for a while. At least I am. I'm not going to be on social medias. I'm not going to leave my house other than paranormal investigations, occult talks and seminars that I do, and that's it. You won't see me anymore, folks. I am forming a practice that is so devout. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day. I'm working at to 3 a.m. Think about that. 3 a.m. getting up and doing 4 hours of ritual every morning. That's my life now. I'm doing 4 right now. It's going to become 3 a.m. I live this, and I can't do that and this and juggle it all. So if you folks who are wondering, I will be disappearing. And it's nothing against any of you. I love and appreciate everything you guys have given us. Someday maybe I'll return back. But as far as going out with other groups and things, probably won't happen, but I appreciate the offer. The more you dig, the more you reap. That's right, Eddie. Now, Azariel, I would like to talk. I think if I seen correctly before I jumped off being on socials, I think I seen that you're writing a book. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have a few that I am writing right now. So first started writing a book a couple years ago, and that actually became a full-blown course on my website, Witchcraft. It ended up becoming such an involved beginner to adept program that I knew that there was going to be a lot of, so I turned it into a full-fledged course where you get Q&As and everything like that. Technically, my first book is released already on my website as a 13-month course that'll take you from beginner to adept. And the number one complaint that I had about it is that, people in the course to have paranormal phenomenon happen, and then they have paranormal phenomenon happen, and then they want to quit the course. So that's, figure that one. Any other job in the world, if I promised you that you would get a result and I gave you that result, you'd probably give me a bonus. No, in the occult world, I ask for, and they're like, can I get a refund? No, there are no refunds for my work, but that is already out there. I do have a couple books coming. I'm actually probably going to start releasing books or very non-filled workbooks from a working sorcerer. I am a working sorcerer who focuses on results-based magic that, you get results that are tangible. So I'm probably going to start releasing a series of chat books, various things from prosperity magic to love magic, things like that, that will be no filler, no fluff. It'll be, here is a 3-day protocol that you can do to get this result, or here is a 6-month protocol that you can do to get this result, or here are 3 or 4 different spirits that you can work with. Here's some spell work for you to do to get this result. It's going to be very much tailored towards results-based magic. And then on my website, I also offer services. I'm a working sorcerer, so I do all of that stuff. Everything from teaching magic, you can hire me for consults, to I do exorcisms and all of that stuff. And it's kind of this is my life. This is what I do. So,
Daniel, you have any questions, brother?
No, I actually really do appreciate, and I'm a big fan of all of the suggestions that you gave us in chat tonight in regards to like divination tools and exercises. I've used all of them. I still use many of them as well, and so I appreciate those suggestions. And I've really enjoyed speaking with you tonight.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man.
Oh, not a problem, man. It's always a pleasure. I'm glad we got to to do so before, like I said, we wrapped up this season. We will, folks, be back. I can promise you that. I don't know when. It won't be for a while. I would imagine as we wrap up probably the end of next month, you won't see us again in 2024. Will you in 25? Maybe. If not, I'm sure you'd see us in 26. But, what I tell people, and I have a lot of people saying, you've got to be kidding me, you're ending the show. People were pissed when I ended Nights of the Nephilim. I got a lot of mail that people are like, I can't believe you're doing this. Well, I'm sorry, folks, but it isn't about you. You got to understand that for years and years and years, I ran a record label with 30, 40 artists on it. I did music day in and day out, nonstop. I was doing photography. I was doing the paranormal. I was doing everything else. I have my radio shows. I eventually cut ties with the music after all the years and everything else. And it got to a point where I felt burnt, but then I would allow myself to rejuvenate just a little bit. And then I would be like, I have enough to keep going for years. And then I would do it, and I would run on a tank on E again for a little while. And then I'd be trying to build it up, and then I'd run it on E again instead of giving myself the proper time. I'm not burnt out in the sense of my practice or my spirituality or my normal everyday life. But my creative juices and wanting to do this week in and week out and keep bringing you content is lacking. And I'm sorry, and it sounds fucked up. I love you guys. I love the support. I love working with Dan. I love our guests that we bring on. But sometimes you just need to disappear. I don't like being on Facebook. I don't like seeing what you had for breakfast. I don't like seeing who you hung out with. I don't give a shit. So it's like I have to leave that world. I want to leave those vibrations to focus on truly matters. And as I've always told you, spiritual contact. It's all that matters to me in this world. Aside from my family, is talking to the dead and working with the demonic spirits. That's it. It's all it's ever been. So I hope you guys will respect that. I know it's bittersweet for many people. I know it's bittersweet for Dan. That I had made this announcement earlier in the year that I have to step aside. But I am so honored to have brought on everybody we brought on the show. I'm so honored for all you guys watching. And we still got 5 more episodes for you. So we got a couple more guests coming on, a couple more deep dives into topics. We'll have 1 more call-in episode. So if you've had an experience that's absolutely beyond belief, wild, unexplained, reach out to us now, because in the next couple weeks we'll be doing that episode, or next few weeks, I should say, and that'll be the last one for this season, possibly the last one for this show altogether. So don't miss your opportunity. We would love to talk and hear from you. And the paranormal field is a joke. I almost left this year. Yeah, bro, that's why you don't see my team don't post anything. We don't release evidence. We don't make documentaries. We don't do shit. And it's not because we're not getting evidence. It's not because we couldn't make documentaries. It's because I fucking hate people. Like, I don't like the human race. I would be fine with hitting a button. If I didn't have a family, I'd fucking wipe this place clean. And I think life's beautiful. I just can't stand human beings. Like, it's a low vibrational beings. I'm above it. And like, being around paranormal teams, and it's one last comment I'll make before we jump off here. I'll let Azariel give his final words, is that most of the paranormal have no talent. These paranormal teams have no skills at all. They only have the devices. They only have Twitter and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and fucking Snapchat and all this other stupid shit that's on there. And it's not about connecting with spirits. It's about getting likes, getting follows, getting big, becoming a mini personality. And I already reached my levels of fame in my day with my music. And you know what? It's disgusting. Once you actually reach a level of fame, it sucks. It's horrible, it's toxic, and it's everything you never wanted that you thought you did. And that's why I don't put anything out. So folks will all the time say, why don't we see anything from your team? Because we're actually going out as a family, having a good time, and talking to the spirits. Because that's all that matters. And for all the people doing this for malicious intent, to make themselves famous off the dead, I hope you all fucking rot. And I'll be talking to you sometime in the future. I'll call you back. We'll have a nice chit-chat then. Agreed, brother, and it's all about egos and how many likes and everything. Yeah, it's all about egos and personality, and honestly, I've done everything I can to dissolve it. People think I'm cocky. No, I'm just blunt as shit. I don't have an ego. I don't care about being anything. In fact, like I said, I want to disappear. So, you know, Azariel, thank you so much. Make sure you check out his courses, 13-month course from start to finish. That's intense, guys. Don't be a pussy. If you get results, stick with it. That's the point. Make sure you check out his course, check out his chat books that are going to come out in the near future. He makes wonderful ritual implements as well. So check out some of his tools he's putting out because they're beautiful. He puts a lot of work into them. And just follow this man. Support him. These guys are still on the internet. Daniel and Azariel are going to continue to put out content. They're going to continue to do the things that I no longer can. And I want you to support them because these are 2 genuine folks. And these are 2 people that would need and would love your support. So please continue to do so. How do you contact me? Once again, you fucking don't, so please don't. But Azariel, any last words, brother?
Thanks for having me on, guys. And for any of you guys who are viewing or listening, you can find all of my stuff through mysticflame.org. I've got a blog up on there. I'm going to be relaunching my podcast as the Mystic Flame Podcast here again soon. There's lots and lots of new content that's going to be coming out. And yeah, I'm going to be getting back into making full-blown amulets and talismans and everything again. And I have a whole bunch of new courses and mini courses that are going to be coming out this year. So if you want to follow me, you can find all of my details at mysticflame.org.
You heard it, folks. Check it out. There's some really great stuff, I'm telling you. Like I said, I've been watching him do his thing for years now, and always been impressed. So make sure you check it out. And let me see if there's any other comments we need to get to before we jump off here. Daniel and Azariel, please keep in contact, said Matthew. He's a an avid follower of things paranormal and supernatural. Great guy. I've talked to him many times. So much love to you, Matt. Thank you for all the support. I'm sure we'll talk a few more times before I'm erased from the planet. And Eddie, much love to you always, brother, man. I appreciate you. Other than that, folks, let me look at my schedule real quick, or our schedule, I should say. We have, what date is it? Not next Thursday, but the following Thursday, the 18th, and then the following Thursday, the 25th, we will be doing back-to-back episodes. We will be bringing on a guest. I'm working on locking in that date. Scheduling's kind of conflicting sometimes with folks. So we're going to be getting on a great guest we've had on the show in the past. That's all I'm going to say right now. And then we're going to have a topic episode. And then next month, like I said, another topic episode, one more guest, and then a call-in. And that's it for us, folks. So make sure you check them out. Click the like, share, follow button, subscribe button. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your grandma. And We'll see you here in a couple weeks. Once again, Daniel, it was a pleasure, brother. And Azariel, thank you so much, man, for coming on to the show.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Catch you soon. Take care.